We see the real him, and that is, he doesn't know what the fuck to do because like he's exposed.
I think that people gave him the benefit of the doubt as in a general way, including fans, including probably his staff, including the friends, quote unquote, the cast, whatever, because Ariana is such a stand-up person that you have to kind of assume. It's like when you meet somebody, like if you meet your friend from college's husband, right? And you guys don't live near each other and you meet him and you're kind of like rubbed the wrong way by him. Then you say to yourself, but like, I know her and I know who she is as a person. And if she's a good person, she wouldn't be with somebody. So I must just be misinterpreting, right?
Yeah.
Welcome to Cocktails and Gossip, the podcast where we drink cocktails, but you better believe we're going to spill the tea. We chat reality TV, celebrity blinds, and the hottest tea from BravoandCocktails.com. And as always, it's all alleged and just for fun. We do not verify our blinds. I'm B.
And I'm Amanda. Let's get into this week's tea.
What's up, cocktailers and Amanda?
Hey, everybody. Hey, B. Okay, so we're obviously going to talk about Vanderpump, but let's first start with Summer House because that was quite a conversation and quite like a finale. Lindsay and Danielle sit down. I thought it was pretty brutal. What do you think?
I thought it was, and so I posted about it. And what I like posting about things is, contrary to tree stands, I'm only kidding, but like I'm a person who, when I hear another perspective, I absolutely sometimes sway my own thoughts. Like, oh, I hadn't thought of that.
Right.
So I did see Lindsay as cold, and I stand by that. But somebody else said she was just composed, and if she would have given her a reaction, the girls would have latched onto that. So I do see that point. I think that the general consensus is that Danielle's reaction is outsized considering their ages, mid-30s. I think we've said it and we'll say it again that Danielle had a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
But it would have been nice to hear Danielle say, I apologize for my behavior at the engagement party.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have been able to celebrate you. This is our last weekend. Let's can it for now. Let's both enjoy ourselves and let's meet in the city and have a conversation. And maybe the cameras could have followed them there. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy for us to say that as outsiders. It's easy to say that knowing full well that Danielle wasn't in a great place, right?
Right.
I'm just saying what I would have preferred to see happen. I don't think either of them handled this situation well. And I think two things can be true. I think Lindsay can be not a girl's girl and only out for herself. But I do think that she did love Danielle. And I think that she lets very few women in. And so Danielle's reaction of really, it felt to Lindsay that she wasn't happy for her and that she didn't think they would be a good fit.
Yeah.
I think that neither were hearing each other.
Yes.
People are saying like, oh, we missed something. I don't think we missed anything. I will say that, and I posted this in Cocktail Party, in the preview for the reunion, we see Danielle go, and I never brought this up on camera because I was protecting you guys. And really, there was no great reveal. It was just that Lindsay and Carl were fighting leading up to Summer House and they didn't have a perfect relationship. The person did say something about their sex life, which I didn't go into detail. So, I mean, the person who told me didn't go into detail.
Yeah.
But it was kind of a miss for Danielle. We did originally hear they brokered some sort of peace. So in the clips we're seeing, it looks like they're at each other's throat. I guess they do somehow. Maybe Andy's able to mediate them. And I think it's a bomb mentality. I think that, listen, Paige and Amanda and Ciara have their reasons for disliking Lindsay because of the Hannah situation. However we feel about that, Hannah was their friend. So they're not going to be on her side. And did they egg Danielle on? Certainly. Does Lindsay spin things in her favor? Can she be obtuse? Yes. I don't know. I'm looking forward to the reunion. And we're also hearing, Amanda, that I don't know about the cast, but that Summer House is going to look different. We're hearing that it's going to be more of their life in the city and then, the Summer House part as well. So let's see. Does that mean a spinoff? I don't know. We don't know what Paige and Craig are up to. I do know they've been doing he's in Charleston, she's there. She's in New York, he's there. So they are trying to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But, filming is filming. So I don't know.
Well,
I think the reunion will be good.
Yeah, I have a few things. I think, and you, I'm sure, know this from your life experience too. When you're in a fight with somebody, it's rarely only about one specific thing, right?
Right.
There's usually a few things and it kind of ends up getting rolled into the fight. And part of why I feel they were not hearing each other is because Danielle was so focused on what she wanted to get across, and Lindsay was so focused about what she wanted to get across that they couldn't meet in the middle. And I agree with you. Danielle, I think, should have said, look, my behavior was terrible. That was coming from a place of hurt, and not that is any excuse, but that is how I was feeling. That could have been partially or on its way to maybe what Lindsay wanted to hear. And I think Lindsay could have said, you know what? I see what you're talking about. I understand. I've been very wrapped up in this, and I can understand why you would feel like you were left behind. But I think that's because neither of them did that, and they were both so focused on getting their point across, they couldn't meet in the middle. But I think...
And I also think on reality, it's a sad truth that you kind of decide, right? The conversation was planned. We all knew it was happening.
Right.
We heard Kyle say, oh, you guys are going to... So, Lindsay decided what her thing was going to be, what she was going to say.
Mm-hmm.
And Danielle had the girls pumping her up, what she was going to say. So you almost wonder if Danielle would have thrown out what we said, which was apologize for her reaction at the engagement party.
Mm-hmm.
Would Lindsay have maintained that cold composure? There's a chance she would have, right? Because she wasn't prepared to forgive. She wasn't prepared to go past, I'm done with you. You're not invited to the wedding. All that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I think regardless of what we see at the reunion, if they're both on Summer House next season, I think they absolutely will move past it. I think if afforded the opportunity to spend that type of time together, they could truly mend. I think that if they're not together in a Summer House, their relation, even if they make some sort of peace, even if Danielle's invited, if they're not in that living situation together again, neither is going to have the comfort to really make amends.
Yeah. And the wedding is this fall, right? So
in Mexico.
Yeah. I guess.
Arriba.
I know. I'm sure we're going to start getting some insight in the next, because they usually start filming after 4th of July, I think, or right around 4th of July.
Yes, I think so. I think it was after, because I remember the last couple weeks in June, everybody was messaging me what's going on? Why is because they always show in their Insta stories. And I remember saying 4th of July. So I think it's 4th of July is their kickoff.
Yeah. Well, I like this idea of showing more of what's going on in New York too. I feel like the show used to do more of that than they have been. And so I think getting a little more of that balance and...
Wait, let's discuss Maya. How are we skipping over this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. And I don't dislike Maya. I actually think in real life, she's somebody I would be friends with. Yeah. She seems like a very cool person. A very, how do you say it? Well-tempered. She kind of regulates her emotions well. She's an even-tempered person. With that said, you are hiding a breakup on camera. You can't do that. I get it. Nobody wants to share it. I know on our cocktail Zoom party, one of our followers said, but I listened to her pod and her and Ciara were crying the whole time. Yeah, it's hurtful. It sucks. Yeah. But that's why you need people like Lindsay who are willing to show it. Yeah. That's why Vanderpump is so successful. Because if you're not going to show it, then why am I watching? Yeah. I can like you and not want to watch you on my screen at the same time.
I mean, I think must have just been felt really embarrassing for her. And I think that would probably be one of the hardest emotions to share for a lot of people,
Yes. And you know what? It's interesting because I listened to Call Her Daddy, other things that Ariana has been saying since the breakup. What she says is something that I'll say women, but certainly men too, who are cheated on, like unfortunately do have that feeling of embarrassment,
Yeah.
which is so ridiculous to like the outside. To me, looking at Ariana or looking at Maya, there's obviously nothing they did wrong.
Right.
It's not like, well, if Maya would have made more cookies, if she would have had more cookie drops for Oliver, he wouldn't have had a dozen jump offs in Montauk. Like, he's a cheater. That's who he is. That's where he is in this stage of his life. God bless. Hope he changes, but odds are he won't. That's about him. It has nothing to do with the person, but there is that sense of shame. And I think that women can relate to that and can sympathize with her. But as a viewer, do I want to watch her next summer knowing that she's going to conceal anything juicy? And it also becomes unfair to be running around the house with binoculars and a cup on your ear listening to Lindsay's drama and Danielle's drama, but yet you have a juicy storyline that we're not even getting to hear an inkling of.
Right.
Like, that's not fair. People aren't going to want to film with you, and rightfully so. And it also kills the show.
Yeah.
Like, everybody should be mad at her.
Yeah. I think while we can all identify with the feelings that she's feeling and feeling embarrassed, I think she made a big mistake not letting us in to see what was really going on.
And someone like Lindsay and Carl, for that matter, are sitting there like, okay, Danielle was going through a breakup. Maya was going through a breakup. Those two were probably together hanging in Montauk, hooking up with girls. That would have been juicy. But yet they all chose to focus on our engagement and criticize our healthy relationship. Like, looking at it from their seat, that's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
And everyone is complicit because everybody knows what's going on when the cameras aren't rolling. And Lindsay knew too. Lindsay had to have known there was something going on with Danielle and probably Maya too. We've seen it so many times. I remember on Shahs of Sunset a long time ago where Mike Shah said, I don't know why I'm calling him Mike Shah, but you know what I mean, Mike.
Yes.
And Mike Shithead. His relationships all sucked. I mean, everyone was toxic and whatever, but they were all exposed.
Right.
And I remember him giving Asa a really hard time because ended up her last season, she was pregnant with Jermaine Jackson. Was it Jermaine or Jermaine's son? Whatever. She was pregnant with a Jackson family baby. And the relationship was never on the show. And Mike's like, how dare you? He said to her at a reunion, how dare you sit here and criticize me and criticize my life when all you show are your businesses, your caftans, your diamond water, your bullshit. And all you do is sit around with Reza and Gigi and whoever and talk shit about me and MJ and everybody else. But at least we're showing our lives.
Right.
And honestly, I will say, and I think all Bravo fans and reality television fans in general will agree when I say those people should immediately be cut. Robin Dixon when she pulled that shit, Asa, Maya, anybody who is caught hiding their storyline should be called out on camera and made to talk about it or get off the damn show.
You know what's so funny is it's a theme across pretty much all reality TV is that this is a very common fight.
Yes.
With the New York housewives, you know, some of them were pissed because they were working more, or with Beverly Hills, right? Like with Denise saying that she had to work all the time and using that as an excuse to not show as much of her life. Yeah. Well, Maya, I am very willing to give you another chance, but you gotta meet us halfway and let us in to your life.
Speaking of Beverly Hills, I don't have a ton of tea, but I do have a little tea. So I'm going to squeeze it in here. Apparently, I'm hearing that Denise showed up to one of their parties wasted, and she accused Erica, because we know Ren is no longer on the show, of sending bots to Garcelle's son. So again, we know that Diana paid to find out who the culprit was, and she claims that she knows who the person was, but they never came out and said who it was. But I just find it funny that Denise showed up wasted and yelling at Erica about bots.
That's really funny. I did not hear that. What's her name? Diana dropped the lawsuit.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing.
The whole thing was
woman
always bullshit, right?
Yes, always.
Okay,
and
so
that's not to say she did it. It's just whatever.
Yeah.
She's a flop.
I want to talk about the big fat Jersey wedding. I feel like the wedding itself was a little, I mean, it looks like it would have been an amazing wedding, right? But like the show itself was a little boring, but then the trailer We'll talk about that next, but let's talk about the wedding first.
And I know I'm going to get some heat for this. I thought the wedding was beautiful. I get it was gaudy, but that's a New Jersey, New York Italian wedding. I've been to obviously many. I had one of my own, not that fancy, right? But they're over the top. There's tons of food. There's wild entertainment. Like I had a cigar roller at my wedding. Like this is what New Yorkers and New Jersey people do. You have a band, you have a DJ too. Okay.
The burlesque dancers, is that like a normal thing?
So it's not a normal thing, but I wouldn't be, if I was at a wedding of someone who had a ton of money, it wouldn't shock me. I think I told this story. My husband's coworker got married at the Plaza. I think I told this story, maybe on Cocktail. And I had just had my daughter. She was legitimately like 3.5 weeks old. And I was like, we have an invitation for a wedding at the Plaza. We're not missing it. I got my postpartum body into a dress and muumuu and I shuffled out. And they had some wild stuff like that. It wasn't burlesque dancers, but like different type of dance, like just over the top. Like we have trucks. Okay, so I'm just gonna tell you a couple of things that you will see at not a super fancy, okay? You're talking like a fancy wedding. Obviously the people drop money on it, but you're saying you're like not heiresses, not television stars, right? You're like upper middle or like, you know what I mean? Working people that make decent money. Do you have where they have a DJ or a band and then they have like instruments that they bring out, like drums and they bang on them?
Yeah, or like the electric violin kind of situation. Yes.
Okay, so that's all normal.
Yeah.
So do you have at the end of the wedding do you have a Venetian hour? Do you know what a Venetian hour is?
No, what's that?
Okay, so a Venetian hour is, my New York and my New Jersey people are all yawning. But at the end of the wedding, you usually get like a tray of pastries on the table and a slice of cake. That's like a normal wedding. Where I'm from, that's actually more like a communion party or a christening, because at a wedding, what happens is the dance floor is cleared out, or sometimes they do it in a separate room and they roll out. And sometimes there's a big production where there's like not fireworks, but those like sparklers coming out. And there are tables rolled in and you have chocolate fountains and a cordial stand, a cotton candy making machine and cannolis and a Venetian hour with every sort of dessert your heart could ever desire, a crepe station. Okay, so you have that.
Yeah.
And then many times on the way out, so when we were at the Plaza wedding, they had a full breakfast. So they had like an after party after the wedding at the Plaza. And then you left and you walked through and you could sit, but like honestly, who was sitting at that point?
Right.
There was a full breakfast. What other weddings I've been to have is like a food truck.
Yeah.
And so this food truck will have, right, like fast food, like Taco Bell, White Castle, McDonald's, whatever, and a coffee or pretzels or whatever.
Right.
Newspaper, like the morning paper. You've seen that kind of thing.
So I've never heard it called a Venetian hour. And I don't know that I've ever seen, I've seen like the big dessert production, but like I said, I've never really heard it called that. But like the after party and the kind of second meal, the late night meal, totally have seen all of that kind of stuff. But I just need to make some friends in New Jersey who are Italian so I can come to some of these weddings because they sound amazing.
And rich. Yes, they're like weekend events. Like you can't move for like going to work. If it's a Saturday wedding, going to work Monday, you're still tired and hungover. But listen, so people are saying it's tacky. It was over the top, but a lot of it to me, it was like a rich person in that area's wedding. Like it wasn't that, like we probably saw it on Jersey Shore with Mike the Situation and Angelina. I'm sure they had a very similar wedding.
Yeah.
I know they did because I watched theirs. And I also think that Teresa was very happy. It was sad to see how upset her girls were at the mention of their uncle.
Yeah.
But you can't help but look at it and see that I understand they're her children, but 3 of them are a little bit older. Gia's an adult. Gabrielle is 18. Melania is about 17. And to look at it and not see any fault on their mother's side, when they hear everything their mother says about Melissa since they're little girls, I guess they just see it like, well, Melissa's always been bad. So Gia even said herself, everything was great before Louis was in the picture. She said it.
Yeah.
And when Teresa came home from prison and Joe was in prison, there was that period of time. There was that period of a couple years while he was away and they were fighting for him to come back to the States where the Gorgas and the Giudices were close.
Yeah.
They were hanging out a lot. And when she got involved with Louis, that changed.
Like, when was that? I can't remember where this was in time, but when they went down to Florida and like they were like throwing the cake, right? And Siggy
Right. That was
got
Siggy.
right, but she got so like pissed off or whatever. But like Melissa and Teresa were totally getting along and totally having fun.
And there were a couple seasons like that. So
Yeah.
they had worked past a lot of their issues.
Right.
I don't like expect the girls to blame their mom or Louis, but maybe like take it into consideration. And on that note, I think that, and I know that Joe shared in this episode that Gia called him and said, you can do better. I mean, but I do think that maybe prior to that, him making more of an effort with his nieces,
Yeah.
you know? So I just think there's fault on both sides.
Yes, I agree. I think no matter what is going on with Joe and Teresa, he does have different relationships with the nieces, and there is no reason that they should all lump it all in together. They're grown up enough. It doesn't feel like there needed to be. He couldn't separate his relationships with them from what's going on with Teresa and Louis. But again, and we talked about this a little bit actually on the cocktail party Zoom, that, even with Gia saying like hey, it didn't used to be like this before Louis. Again, why nobody is like, hey, Louis, like just back off a little bit here. Like let them figure it out. Let them have their relationship. And you don't have to get all red and freaked out about every little thing, especially to me. Like that was something it just, again, like Louis I've just realized it when I was watching him, like he just officially, he gives me the ick. Like I don't know. And it's like, there was no need for him to get so wound up about the social media post on his wedding day. Like, don't do it. Nobody needs to talk about this. Leave it alone. And clearly it's for TV, but why let something like that rain on your parade on the day, on the day where you're marrying the person that you're going to be married to for the rest of your life?
Yeah. So we see that everyone keeps bringing up Joel and Melissa. And the girls obviously got very mad because you could see that they were purposely not wanting to talk about it. But it's a television show. You don't think production told the makeup artist and Jen Aydin to bring it up? They want the drama on the show. I'm sure they asked the girls, which is why they must have said to Teresa, we have to see you telling the girls they're not coming. So that's when Teresa had one of them ask, are Tio and whatever, Zia and Zio coming? And he said, and she goes, no. And they talk like, and it's not even filmed. It's just, you know what I mean? It was kind of like a side note because the girls probably said they didn't want to talk about it, but Teresa knows she's filming a show. Gia did bring it up to Dolores and Jen because certainly she has her confessional. She knows it's a show. But people love to say that Joe and Melissa are boring. Without Teresa, they wouldn't have a storyline. But she was their only drama of the day.
Right.
So, I mean, clearly we now know that Louis unravels. So her having a spinoff wouldn't really make sense. Also, all over social media, everyone was like, I'm not even going to watch the wedding. Bullshit. I said it last week. I was like, I'm definitely watching. Like, who? And a surprise to no one, especially not me. Great ratings, almost 1 million. It matched the final episode and the demographic, whatever. But what would a spinoff give us? I think a spinoff, everybody would tune in initially for the first episode, and we would see a very curated Teresa show their best moments, whereas her on New Jersey means conflict. And honestly, yeah, there's some funny moments that I can remember from the early days of Teresa when she was light and fun, pre all of her legal issues. But her iconic moments are all around conflict. The table flip, which was first season, so she always had this in her. Running after Danielle Staub at the brownstone saying, I'm from Patterson, did you forget? Is bitch better? When she was at the Posh show and she says Posh stands for prostitution, whatever she said. She's very good television in conflict mode. Otherwise, it's her squeaking voice. And like, maybe her top people would tune in for that. But
well, and she used to have some cute, like when she'd say like ingredients and like, and she'd have like her cute little, but like ditzy moments, but like she doesn't let that come out anymore. Have you noticed that? Like it's like she almost is like, no, 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 I am beyond that. Like I'm way smarter than I used to be. And she
Mm.
like won't let us see that side of her, which was to me the only endearing part about her.
And like, I don't blame her for being guarded because you're on television for so long. I mean, she must look at all the viewers like vultures, which we are. But when you're the product, you know, when you're the candy, don't get mad when people want a piece. So I have to say, and you know, I love Marge, her going to the wedding and then saying she was leaving because she didn't feel right about Melissa and Joe not being there definitely felt staged.
Yeah, it did.
Like,
and
even
she did kind of back off too.
yeah, and even Jackie was like, girl, stop. Either go or don't go. But if you're going to go, let it be about the couple. Like the foodies didn't go, as they shouldn't, because they weren't really friends otherwise. Yeah, I mean, the wedding was okay. So
What do we know about like what's next?
well, I just have to, before we go to what's next, what about when she was like, you don't have any bad qualities? And he said, yeah, I sit when I pee.
Oh my gosh.
Ah,
That
ah.
ick. That it just gives me the ick. That's such a weird thing. And then I think it's probably okay to bring this up, but
Yeah.
that was one of the things we talked about in the Zoom last night. Apparently, that is a common quirk of people with narcissistic tendencies, men, that they pee sitting down.
That's wild.
I didn't take the time to actually sit down and research it, but somebody who is
I
in
trust
the know
the people
brought
because
it
it
up.
was more
Yeah.
than one who said yes.
Yeah. Yes. Wild, right?
Oh my God. It was wild.
Okay, so we've got the trailer. It looks like it's going to be pretty crazy.
I mean, Melissa's demeanor to me said composed, and
Mhm.
Teresa's said frantic. She seems worried in a way that we haven't seen in the past, and she's always had things to be worried about, especially in the legal years. Frank, Joe, and John Fuda really exposed Louis. I mean, and this is just the trailer. We see an epic Teresa walk-off that is kind of reminiscent of Vicky's last reunion with the screaming and how they focused on her face. We know the private investigator, the Bo Dietl stuff. And we know that Andy said that Louis doubles down on having hired a private investigator to look into everyone, although he then denied it on Watch What Happens Live. We saw him say that they got death threats, and that's why he hired security. Andy is very clearly not happy with Louis.
Yeah.
What we're hearing, okay, and this is just what we're hearing, I don't know if there's any truth to it, is that people are very unwilling to film with Louis. They're making the case that it is honestly a safety issue. This man is going dark. He's taking reality television way too seriously. He hired a private investigator. He hired a PR firm to do a smear campaign. And I don't know if there's truth to it. I don't know if we'll find out at the reunion. Well, we know he admits the PI, but as far as the PR firm, what we do know is that Bravo did a cease and desist or a gag order, and they had to unfollow a lot of Instagram and social media accounts, myself included, anyone that they name was brought up. So there's got to be something to it, right? It's not just chatter. Now, people not wanting to film with Louis, I don't believe necessarily means she won't be back. But I do think it means that we would see less of him, which she might prefer.
Yeah.
She's seen the backlash. She's seen him unravel. And now there was a People article yesterday. And I have to imagine that it was Teresa saying it. And she was actually very smart because what we saw on the reunion trailer was her saying to Melissa, which we told you guys in Cocktail Party, she said, I'm never going to have to see you again after this. And she says, why? Where are you going? And Teresa's like, you're the one who's going. Basically telling her, you're going to be fired, haha. Teresa to Melissa. Now, we've seen it with Nene. We've seen it with Vicky. It does not work out when people think they're bigger than the network. So we see yesterday an article in People magazine with Teresa saying, I have no idea if I'm back. I'm not locked in. I'm not the boss. Bravo's the boss. But boy, I need the salary. I have 4 daughters to support. So all the thoughts on that.
I mean, smart move by Teresa, especially knowing that it's going to look really bad when she's like, you're done to Melissa, you know, in the reunion. So I think the idea of seeing less of Louis is something that viewers are probably, I mean, I think a lot of viewers are saying like that. I think I'm not the only one who's getting the ick from him. So that might make things a little bit better. And you know what? Maybe if he backs out, and we talked a little bit about this last week, but if Teresa and Melissa and Joe can kind of get to a slightly better place, then maybe that changes, because I think all of us have felt just kind of exhausted by this fight. I think even Andy said he's exhausted by it. So,
but you know what the thing that just occurred to me as you're talking? How does he take a back seat if all of the other husbands are so prominent?
Well, the other husbands all like each other.
Well, Louis, Bill, and Nate, Danielle Cabral's husband, seem to be in alliance on, the second half of the season.
Yeah.
So unless Bravo says like he's got to take a back seat or you're not back, I don't think Louis would voluntarily take a back seat.
No, he seems to like the limelight. I think
he thinks he can hold it together. Like we heard he held it together at the reunion.
We'll see. He tends to be pretty performative at these reunions, as you'll remember last year when he was, pulling the peacemaker shit and saying, I like Marge, and Teresa was seething about it. So
I can tell you that, and I'm going to be purposely vague here, because I do think that they're really considering all options, and I don't believe that any final decisions have been made. There is talk of a demotion, and I'm not talking about Teresa. And there is talk of putting someone on pause, and I'm not talking about Teresa. And I don't know who's getting that out, right? So I'm not saying I'm hearing that from a source that I necessarily trust. I'm just saying that's what's been swirling in my inbox. And it makes me wonder about our theory of Marge being put on pause. I don't personally see it, but I think that hearing those rumors and hearing it's not Melissa or Teresa being put on pause, who else would it be? Unless it's Jen, which Jen gives us a lot. Her whole family life is incredibly interesting. You can like her or dislike her, but she's a person who, whether you like her or not, there are so many things that are likable about her story.
Yeah. I've come around on her because she has given us so much, and with the therapy and showing her family, not just her kids, but her brother and her sister-in-law and her shit with Bill. Like, I don't know. We'll see. And I hope it's not Marge. I hope it's not Marge. I like them all, honestly, but I do think that the dynamic needs to shift somehow.
I do think, and I've always thought this about Jen, and it's something that I enjoy in a general way, like the reason I enjoy Family Karma and the reason that I enjoyed Shahs of Sunset. I love seeing different cultures, like different from my own. And with Jen, I think it's been very interesting. Although she was raised in America, I think that the show gave her a social life that is more American than what she ever was in. In other words, you can live in America, but really be absorbed in more of your own culture, right? Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, you bring the culture with you.
Exactly. Yeah. And also you hang around with people of that culture. Like in New York City, there's so many examples of it. But just to give you an example that comes to mind, like the Greek community, which is similar to Turkish because they're Christian, but they're Orthodox. Mm-hmm. There are communities in New York City where the Greek church is very much the center of their social life. So they'll go to public schools and they'll have friends of all nationalities, but after school, they go to Greek school. Their teams are at the Greek church. Their weekend events, are, all of those kind of things. In the same way that Catholic people, and now Catholic people obviously are Irish and Spanish and Italian, but the Catholic Church has CYO sports and, the Jewish religion has theirs. So we see it with all religions and with all cultures. But with Jen, you see someone who looks to be such a modern woman who is in many ways still very anchored to her culture's traditional beliefs.
Yeah, she's really fun to follow too on Instagram because she's always going to these really interesting Turkish weddings, Turkish parties, things like that. So anyway, I like seeing
the thing I would say about Jen is I think she should ride less for other people still be strong when somebody offends you, right? Still be strong when you feel strongly about something, but you're interesting enough. You no longer need to be anybody's soldier.
That's right.
And I think that the audience as a whole, I know that she has people who love her very much, but I think she would have a wider appeal if she went that way.
It's less interesting to me for somebody to just blindly back people no matter what.
Right.
So, okay. So what else do we want? Do we want to talk about?
Well, there's another
the
lawsuit.
lawsuit?
Do you want to give a
Yeah.
little summary of that? Because this just dropped today.
Yeah. So Teresa's husband, I'm reading this, so
Us
bear
Weekly
with me.
article.
Us Weekly. So Louis Ruelas, his business, which is called Digital Media Solutions, has been named in a harassment lawsuit. According to court documents obtained by a woman named Juanita Williams filed a class action lawsuit against Choice Health Insurance and Ruelas' business, Digital Media Solutions, earlier this month. Williams claimed that she had received multiple telemarketing calls from the firms despite being listed on the National Do Not Call registry. Williams is seeking $1,500 in damages per call. Also alleged in her filing that she answered one of these calls in September 22 and was promptly transferred to one of their insurance agents. During the conversation, the healthcare company allegedly told her that Digital Media Solutions had generated her number for them as a potential sales lead. Ruelas, who is 49, launched Digital Media Solutions in 2012. According to the firm's website, DMS is a leading provider of technology-enabled digital performance advertising solutions, blah, 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 blah. So we have talked about this a little bit. And guys, like, the gathering and use of data in order to sell products is not illegal, right? There are legal ways to do it. Where things get illegal is if, you have a company and you got an email address from a client, and then me, Amanda, I have a company that is not whatsoever affiliated with B's company. B gives me that email address, and then I try to start selling to them. That is illegal. Because if B didn't disclose, like, hey, I'm going to take your email address and I'm going to give it to Amanda's company so that they can then sell you stuff, that is completely illegal. And so that is what essentially this person is saying, is that their data was taken and that it was misused. She's on the do not call list, and that is essentially what she's saying. So we also know from a lot of our conversations here, anybody can sue anybody for anything, and whatever claims they put into a lawsuit, that you can put whatever you want, right? So they don't necessarily have to be true to be put into a lawsuit. So just because we're seeing this lawsuit happen, just because we saw that law firm fishing around for other people who might have been in a similar situation, again, none of that really matters. But I will say, I had done some research previously on this company, and I read the Better Business Bureau reviews and complaints. And I'm just going to say, and as I like to say, where there's smoke, there's fire. And the smoke definitely seems to be building on this.
And they just started a subscription site that's collecting emails. So with that said, let's move on to the Vanderpump reunion. From one dumpster fire.
Oh my gosh.
To the next.
Okay. I mean, I know where I want to start, but I saw some things even in the editing that we've never really seen before, like the black screen with the white writing explaining the kind of situation. That just added to the drama for me. I was like, oh, this is so good. Let's start with Lisa Vanderpump. It felt uncomfortable. Yeah.
Backing up the Toms, they're her business partners. But then for her to ask Ariana if she said to her, well, what do you mean we're not going to be as close? Does that mean you want me to end my business partnership? Okay, you're going to put that on Ariana. And I like how Ariana handled it by saying, I don't think I should be the one giving you, Lisa, business advice. Like,
yeah.
How dare you? First of all, you're not ending anything. If you were going to make the decision to end it, this was filmed weeks after it came out. You would have already made that decision. It's a 5% partnership, for fuck's sake. It's the right thing to do. So I don't even get it. Although people did point out to me that as an executive producer, she makes money off the show. So she kind of has to stay in the middle. That makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
But I was very angry with her for that. I was pretty surprised at how Lala really went back at her. Like, because Lala said he's a narcissist like Randall and people like that are dangerous. And Lisa's like, don't call him dangerous. Lala's like, well, he is.
Yeah. And when she's like, you need to calm down, Lala. And Lala's like, I'm not going to calm down. And Lisa says, we're going to be here for 10 hours. And it's like, well, who cares? I mean, this is a reunion. And Lala, I mean, her pain is palpable, right? Mm-hmm. And that is, to me, the perfect example and the perfect encompassment. I don't even know if that's a word.
I don't either. Sounds good.
Of why she's been so pissed. Because it's like, no, she has been traumatized by a situation and then she's seeing it happen again in front of her face. Like, that's got to feel awful.
Absolutely. And then today, Peacock aired the extended unedited version, and we see Andy ask Lala to explain the parallels she saw between the way that Sandoval acted when he was first dating Ariana and Rachel now. And Lisa just full on shut Lala down and said, you didn't even know these people back then. Then Sandoval chimes in and says, you didn't even know us. And Lala says, well, I had a TV, I watched the show, and I saw it. And Lisa again says, that's not the same thing. You don't have a leg to stand on. And then Ariana comes in and says, well, I see the parallels and you're not going to shut her down. And then, this was great.
They literally down to Ariana. I mean, she's amazing.
It's like she was hypnotized and someone snapped her out of it. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
They literally then, you probably didn't see the extended version yet, but they put up the side-by-side clips, one of Tom arguing with Kristen, okay, so we're going all the way back, about how they have no sex life and Kristen saying she never sees him. And then they did the same conversation with Ariana that we just saw a couple weeks ago. Tell me about James.
Oh my God, I laughed. I was cry laughing and I kept rewinding it because he was killing me. So I pulled together, I was taking some notes on my phone of just some of my favorite James's greatest hits from the last 2 episodes. The very best was when he calls Rochelle and says, you've done diddly fucked yourself over.
It's the accent too.
And then in the reunion, Tom, I'm sorry, but when he, like, you could tell he took that deep breath. He's like, now is when I cry. Performance starts now. And all of them were like, fuck that shit. They all hop on him.
That's what my sister-in-law called me this morning. She was like, I was dying laughing when he started crying. They all just started screaming and heckling him.
I just, like, James makes that crybaby face and he's like, meh, 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 meh. And like, and then he's like, oh, what else did he say? He's like, you fucking crocodile tears pussy. And then the whole time I'm watching Lala and James sitting next to each other, like, you know, in the Muppets, the 2 old men that sit up in the, like, box, Waldorf and Statler, and they just, like, talk the whole time. They talk shit on everybody. I'm like, they're the Muppets, and they're just commenting through this entire thing. I'm, like, super entertained about that entire little sideshow over there. And then when he's like, you're a pussy ass bitch, backstabbing hoe, pussy bitch, worm with a mustache.
It was so good. It was so good. And then when Sandoval said he was going to beat him up, and James would have creamed him.
I mean, let's see.
And her in the fucking trailer. I mean, laughing and giggling. Something is wrong there, Amanda.
Yeah. Let me think here. What about the timing thing? When they totally get busted, when Andy asks Schwartz, he's like, well, when did you know? And then Schwartz says, oh, August. And then Sandoval's like, no, January. And Sandoval was clearly, like, so pissed off.
Lala's like, oh, you didn't get your time straight? So they lie. And they're like, what about the ski trip?
Yeah.
So Schwartz is like, we just were skiing. And they're like, oh, it wasn't a date? Then why wasn't I invited? And he's like, I don't know. Ariana goes, what was it, a fuck fest? And when she said that, you know what I thought to myself, Amanda?
What?
I forget if I've said this out loud. Maybe this was a threesome, or like maybe they took turns with Raquel, and maybe Joe too.
No. Ew.
I mean, would you put that past them?
I mean, no, but that makes me just want to, I'm like, I kind of want to throw up a little bit.
And Schwartz standing up for Joe more in the reunion, like saying to Katie, you're going to get a cease and desist. The
Yeah.
fuck? He never stood up for Katie in 12 years. He's despicable.
Yeah.
The fact that he was making those jokes to Ariana about Raquel, knowing about the affair, and a follower said to me, maybe he was trying to give her hints. I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
He was making a mockery of her is what I think.
Yeah. Should we read that email?
It's too good not to.
Okay. So let's see here. So the subject line is more to the story. And then it says, I do not know if this is the bombshell that will be dropped at the reunion, but I do know there is far more to this affair and to who knew. Raquel, I'll try better, and Sandoval hooked up while she was with James. This was a one-night stand. They did not have sex again until she split with James. People in their inner circle knew about this hookup and actively covered it up and kept it from Ariana and James. The friends were told it was a drunken mistake. If that's not bad enough, the one-night stand was the night of Ariana's birthday party at Madcap. The people who covered were there, and if it is not exposed at the reunion, those people need to tell Ariana and James before Rachel's ex-friend leaks it.
Okay, from the top, it never made sense that he paid for the engagement. I mean, certainly I didn't pick up that he was cheating with Raquel.
No.
I figured he was just a narcissist. I remember even with Brittany and Jax, he somehow made the wedding about him.
I do too.
And Schwartz and Katie. So it's just his narcissistic ways. But now the question is, who are the people in the inner circle? Like, is it Peter?
No.
Is it one of the girls? I imagine that Sheena would not have that close relationship with Raquel if she knew this. I can't imagine Katie not exposing it. At the point that she started hooking up with Schwartz, Katie would have said something.
Yes,
right?
I agree.
If not, I would hope she would say something sooner, but
I think my theory is that James found out about this at some point, and that's partly why he is so mad.
Oh my God, I have not heard that theory. Everyone is guessing Lisa knew. Which doesn't really make sense to me. Possible,
Charlie, maybe? I wonder if Charlie knew.
Is that inner circle? And then again, we have to remember it's a producer who wants us all to tune in. So
yeah. Okay, well, here's the other email we just got. So subject is Bambi-eyed bombshell. Raquel is going to announce during her one-on-one with Andy that she is not going to be coming back for season 11. That's the big thing that is going to change the whole season.
Okay. And when I posted this email, I said that may be true. We did have another email, right? This isn't the first time we've heard this.
Right.
But to me, in and of itself, that wouldn't be a reason to pause. The producers.
Do you think that other people need to process that information for a few weeks? I don't think so. No.
Right. The producer said that the revelation it has to be that there's more that people don't know. I really don't think anyone on the cast knows. I mean, they're all on their own pods. And then Ariana was on Call Her Daddy and they're talking about it. I don't think they want it to get out. So I think it truly is going to be a shock.
Yeah, I agree. Well,
but we're all staying
knowing
tuned.
Bravo, it won't happen until the last one, until number 3. So just buckle up. Let's get in. I'm looking forward for some more James-isms that we can cover next week. But yeah, I mean, it was good TV.
Even my husband was watching with me and he's really hasn't been, but he of course loved James. Everybody loves James. He was just hysterical.
Okay, so we have a quick thing on the Kim and Corey divorce. So we got that document this week and it was kind of funny because I was like, did you look at the bank stuff? I'm like, did you read the whole thing? And you're like, oh, I just read the first thing. I'm like, did you read that Corey included in this motion? So he filed a motion through court to have Kim psychologically evaluated. But in the motion paperwork, he included their March and April bank account statement. And it's wild. there were $127,000 in withdrawals, debits, and service charges.
Now, this is March of 2022.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So guys, like maybe 127,000 might not be that crazy if you're very wealthy, but when you look at what it was all of these like hundreds and hundreds of charges to PayPal, Coinbase transfers. So I did a little looking, and I guess Coinbase is like a crypto, so you can use a PayPal to then fund Coinbase, and Coinbase has some sort of crypto, but I guess a lot of the online gambling websites use Coinbase. And that's what Kroy is saying, is like that she does a lot of gambling. And then, I mean, if you look at this, it's pages and pages and pages. These charges are anywhere from like $30 at a time to $500 at a time. And so I just picked a day. I was like, well, let's just pick March 29th. On March 29th alone, there were 28 of these Coinbase PayPal transfer charges in one day.
So him wanting to have her psychologically evaluated, I mean, it seems like there's a compulsion and an addiction there.
Yeah.
And let's also remember they were not paying their mortgage. So they have $1.1 million in debt, and you're spending $127,000.
Like,
she
go pay
also
debt down. It's nuts.
Also, I saw someone post that she owes thousands of dollars to a bunch of different wine stores in town.
Yeah,
and she drinks Opus wine, which is like very expensive per bottle.
Very expensive. Yes,
I've actually had it. It's delicious, but that's like, for normal people, like maybe on your anniversary dinner, you get a bottle of that.
Yeah.
Not like a case for the week.
Yeah. Like if you've ever been to Napa, like, you know, like you, when you go and tour a vineyard, tour a winery, you pay, right? I want to say that I have it way wrong, but the Opus One tour alone, just to go on it, I want to say is in the like multiple hundreds of dollars. I mean, it was considerably more expensive just to tour and sample than a lot of the other places. And it's worth it. I mean, if you go to Napa, go check it out, because it's a super, super cool experience. And the wine is amazing.
That's wild. I mean, you know what? This Kim and Kroy thing, and I listened to our girl, Heather McDonald, and she had somebody on who said they thought it was all fake. And Heather's like, no way. Like, and also, I remember we spoke about in 2020, he had filed something. And so they're in trouble financially, eroded at their relationship. I believe it's all true. She's on live streams with her ring still on, but she clearly lives in delusion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's 4 little kids, the oldest being, I believe, 11 or 12.
Yeah.
The youngest being about 9 or 10. I don't know. They're little. There's 4 of them. I don't know. I also got some messages about Kroy and how he wasn't really very friendly with his teammates when he played on the Falcons. I think that he probably isn't. I don't know. There's a lot there. I just hope that there's a way out for them, for their kids' sake.
I hope somebody's in charge over there, and that they're not just more focused on fighting with each other, and that they're supporting the kids, because you and I always agree about this. Like, that is always the most important thing.
And not for anything. And I do know that there are adults who are estranged from their parents for a variety of reasons. But both of them are estranged from both sets of parents. That always seemed off to me and leads you to believe that there is something there. And here we are. So, cocktailers, you're the best. Thank you for tuning in. The tea keeps coming. You know what? I was thinking to myself, what are we going to do when Vanderpump and Jersey are off? But Bravo always keeps it pumping, so...
Well, and then like Crappy Lake is going to start the Sonia and Luann show. And
oh my God.
I wouldn't, like, guys, if any of you guys are in, what's it called? It's in Illinois, the town. Benton. And you guys have anything to share with us, send us some fun stuff too. Send us some behind the scenes stuff.
Yes, absolutely. All right, cocktailers, as always, we know there are a lot of pods to choose from. We hope you're enjoying our 24 to 48 hour turnaround. We either record on Thursday or Friday, and we have it out for the cocktail party on Friday right after we record. And it's available on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen, on Saturday mornings. And we hope you like that because it makes the tea fresh and it also gives you something to do on the weekends. If you enjoy us, please leave us a good review. I see that some of you guys have, and we love to read them.
Oh my gosh, the one that you sent to me this week where it
So
said
sweet.
that they're now my best friends. I'm like, oh my gosh, we are all best friends.
Love
I
it.
loved that.
And that's why I love our Zoom calls.
I know,
Honestly,
they
the
are
Zoom
so
call
fun.
feels like 3 minutes. And then I have like my kids banging on my door like, you said you'd be done at 7. I'm like, all right, give me a minute.
I know, same thing. It is. It's like I sit down and then I'm like, oh my gosh, it's almost over. So thank you guys. I hope everybody has a great weekend and we'll talk to you next week.
Till next time.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Just want to ask you guys a favor, just getting kicked off. So many people have been asking us to do this podcast. So please do subscribe. And if you've subscribed, go to your podcast app and hit those 3 little dots to share with your friends, but only friends who like good tea, because the ones who don't care about tea, then like forget them. And don't forget, find us on Instagram at bravoandcocktails_. And check out the website because some great tea gets put there daily that would get us kicked off of Instagram. So thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye, guys. See you next time.